So, my apartment is currently being haunted by the ghost of a dead child and he's trying to kill me. The first time I saw him, I was experiencing sleep paralysis and saw a child sitting in the green rocking chair at the foot of my bed. He had a huge misshapen head that was dented on one side. I did my best to draw it. I had another dream a few nights later, where I was in a library and a girl came up to me and said, "You've seen Dear David, haven't you?" I was like, "Who?" And she said, "Dear David. You saw him." She continued, "He's dead. He only appears at midnight, and you can ask him 2 questions if you said Dear David first." I was very shaken. Having 2 dreams about the same thing is pretty weird. Anyway, a couple weeks passed without incident. Then, David came back in another dream. Same situation, I was in bed, and he was sitting in the rocking chair near the window, staring at me. In the dream, I say, "Dear David, how did you die?" He mumbles, "An accident in a store." I say, "Dear David, what happened in the store?" He groans, "A shelf was pushed on my head." I'm frozen with fear. I ask, "Who pushed the shelf?" David doesn't answer. I realize that I've asked a 3rd question, which I'm not supposed to do. At that point, I wake up, absolutely terrified. The next couple days I Google deaths in the city, but can't find anything about a kid named David dying in a store. I even try different names, Daniel, Dylan, Devin. Nothing. A few weeks go by without incident. Another month or 2 goes by, and I sort of forget about Dear David. I think he lost track of me because I moved upstairs. But lately, something strange is happening. For the past 4 nights, my cats gather at the front door at exactly midnight and just stare at it, almost like something is on the other side. When I opened the door and turned on the hall light, nothing was there, but my cats seemed unnerved. Bushy tails, etc. And that's where I am right now. Dear David found me, I think. I don't know what to do. For the 6th night in a row, my cat has walked over to the door promptly at midnight and stared at it. I couldn't tell, so I mustered the courage to open the door. Nothing was out there, but I took another photo. Look at this. Is it just me, or is there something in the first photo, right where the banister meets the shelves? Hiding on the stairs. I wasn't sure if it was a smudge or something, so I took a second photo from inside. There was something out there. I deadbolted the lock and got in bed because I don't know what else to do. I can still hear my cat meowing at the door.
Not to be all Dana Scully about this, but is there a chance that what you're seeing in the hallway is another cat or other animal?
Nope. I live in a house. There's no real way for an animal to be in the hall. It's been pretty quiet tonight. I'm gonna try out a sleep talk app to see if anything happens during the night. I'm heading to bed, but the cats are back at the door. They only do this in the middle of the night. It's routine now. And here we go. Just minutes before midnight. I don't even know if this is the right kind of salt. I bought a Polaroid camera this weekend, because they're fun and dorky. I decided to take a few photos around my apartment. Polaroids are stupid and fun, and inherently sort of creepy. I didn't expect to find anything, and for the most part I didn't. I took a couple of my living room and bedroom. That's the rocking chair I first saw David in. They're pretty unremarkable. Then I went into the hallway and snapped a photo. The Polaroid developed completely black. I also thought maybe I accidentally covered the lens with my finger, so I took a photo while intentionally covering it. The photo on the left is me covering the lens with my finger. The one on the right is my fully lit hallway taken just after midnight. Okay, one last thing, cause I wanted to double check. Here's a couple video of me taking photos.
Okay, here's my living room. Oh, there. Okay, now I'm gonna take a photo of the hall just to show you what that's like. And as the first one has already developed, so let's see what this one does. Ask a minute. But it is developing. So I don't know.
It came out totally black again, for a second time. Someone told me to take photos from farther away, so I tried that. Once with my iPhone, and once with the Polaroid. Left is with my phone. Right is with Polaroid. The hall light was on both times. Why is it pitch black each time with the Polaroid?
I just brightened your doorway after taking a screenshot, and I am now freaky.
Yeah, I did the same.
Easier to see when you do this. And oh my god, you got the same image.
Folks have been urging me to get some sage, so did. I haven't dreamed about David in a few months, but he appeared again last night. In the dream, my bedroom was filled with hazy smoke, but I could see David sitting in the chair across the room. He was smaller this time. Almost shrunken. He didn't do or say anything except look at me. Anyway, it feels like a bad omen. It's been 2 weeks and he still does this every night at midnight. It's just a whole bunch of small things happening at once. I feel so uneasy, like right before a thunderstorm comes. Everyone is telling me to move, but I don't have any guarantee that this won't follow me. All this ghost stuff has been spooky, but this past weekend was the first time I actually felt unsafe in my home. I had a dream that night, where David was dragging me by the arm, through an old abandoned warehouse. I'm not sure why I didn't fight back in the dream, or how he was strong enough to pull me, but that's dream logic for you. It was a creepy dream, but I didn't think much of it when I woke up. I took a shower, and then I noticed something. I'd woken up with a huge bruise on my arm. I've lived in the neighborhood for over 4 years, and the place has always been jam-packed with carts getting serviced. But today, it was completely abandoned. The whole warehouse was totally gutted and empty. Basically the only thing in the entire warehouse was a single green chair. On my way back from coffee, the warehouse had been shuttered. It's remained shuttered since. The chair, my bruise, dreaming about an empty warehouse and then passing by one. It gave me the creeps. There have been a few small developments in my apartment, but I'm not really sure what to make of them. I just know I'm scared. Shortly after the usual cat stuff, around 10:30 or so, I start getting phone calls from an unmarked number. My entire call history for the past week looks like this. You'll notice that I answered once, yesterday. Usually if it's an automated thing, if you answer once, they quit calling. So I picked up. I didn't say anything. I just listened, waiting for some automated message to chime in. After about a minute, the static stopped, and there was silence. I kept listening. I heard what I thought was breathing, but it was so faint I can't be sure. My heart was racing, so it was hard to hear. Then, just as I was about to hang up, I heard a very small voice whisper, "Hello." Something about the way they said hello freaked me out. It wasn't a question, or a greeting. Just, "Hello." A flat statement. So quiet I could barely hear it. I panicked and hung up. I didn't know what else to do. I closed all the curtains in my apartment and turned on every single light. Anyway, last week I bought a pet monitoring camera, so I can keep an eye on the cats while I'm overseas. It's basically a nanny cam that connects to the Wi-Fi, so you can check in whenever you want. It runs 24/7. So I watched the feed again. Still nothing. I watched it a third time, and finally noticed something. About half an hour later, I got another motion alert. Here's the feed of that alert. During the night on Saturday, while I slept, it recorded the cats in the living room. It seemed pretty unremarkable at first. But then, after a few moments, Maxwell freaks out and jumps over something invisible. Anyway, the next night, the camera recorded a couple more strange videos. Specifically, it recorded Maxwell doing this on and off for hours. I just can't shake the feeling that something has made its way into the apartment. It's odd behavior from Maxwell. In any event, things feel off this week. I can't explain it. I hadn't even gotten to the pantry when I heard a loud crack. It's better to just watch the video, since the nanny cam records everything now. As you can see, I slid the lock immediately after realizing what was going on. I also checked it about 4 more times before bed. The thing that fell was this little knitted cactus in a terracotta planter. It's totally busted now. So instead I had a friend come over and cleanse the place. And for about a week or so, it seemed like it worked. Things appeared to go back to normal. The cats weren't gathering at the door anymore. I stopped having dreams. But something else happened last night. It was around 11 or so, and I was watching TV on the couch. I went into the dining room to get a drink from the fridge, and noticed both the cats sitting by the far window, staring up at it. The window looks out onto the roof of the business next door. I glanced out the window but didn't see anything. I figured that maybe there was a mouse in the wall or something. I shrugged and grabbed a beer from the fridge. As I went into the kitchen to get the bottle opener, I noticed something. There's a window in the kitchen, which looks out onto the same roof. And someone was standing on the roof, staring at me. My phone was in my pocket, so I grabbed it and took a photo. It was blurry and dark, but I swear someone was out there. I tried to take a better photo, but the figure had disappeared.
Okay, so, this is not okay.
It's been about 4 months since the first time I dreamed of David. This might be long, but stick with me. Last night I dreamed about him again. It was almost exactly the same as the first time I saw him. In the dream, I saw him in a chair again. I don't have the green chair in my room anymore. This time it was a recliner I've had for years. He was staring right at me, just like the first time. Again, I felt paralyzed and could barely move. But this time, something was different. I still felt mostly immobile, but I could squirm just a little bit. I felt more alert. I could move my hands somewhat. David glared at me, and I dreaded what I knew was coming. He was going to get out of the chair and come toward me, like before. I had to do something. I keep my phone next to me on the bed, and I somehow managed to get a hold of it. I thought, if David is going to kill me, maybe I can at least get evidence on my phone. I started snapping pictures in the dark. Sure enough, he crawled down off the chair and began shuffling toward me. He moved slowly, like it was a struggle for him. I felt terrified, but I kept taking photos. David limped closer toward me, never taking his eyes off me. Soon I was face to face with him. He started muttering something, too quiet for me to understand. I watched as his eyes rolled back in his head, until they were all wide. I tried to writhe away from him, but I could barely move. I stared in horror as he began crawling up onto my bed, still murmuring something. And that's when I woke up. Same as before. Broad daylight. No trace of David anywhere. For everyone asking, yes, I'm alive. I've been on the quiet side because there's something I'm trying to investigate and I'm not sure how to yet. I'd rather not tweet unless I have something substantial to share. It's also sort of hard to explain the logistics of what I'm trying to find out, but I'll do my best. Basically, there's a part of my apartment I'm just now learning about. At least that's what I think. To refresh your memory, I live in a duplex. I used to live on the first floor, and now I live on the second floor. It's a long boxy building that looks like this. So I'm thinking, is there some secret crawl space in my home? I look all over my apartment but I can't figure it out, so I go into the hallway, and that's when something dawns on me. There's no real way to ease into this, so I'll just say it. There's a mysterious hatch in my hallway. I've always known about it, but I just assumed it opened directly to the roof. It's really high above the stairs, so I always figured it was impossible to access without some sort of fancy professional ladder. I took this video so you can see how high it is. First, the skylight is flat with the roof. I checked Google Earth to make sure. The hatch is about 3 feet below the skylight, meaning there's about 3 feet of empty space between the two openings. I think, maybe the hatch leads to a short ladder going to the roof? But even if that's the case, the hatch is level with all the ceilings in my apartment. That means there's 3 feet of empty space all over my apartment. I'd barely fallen asleep when I woke up to an incredibly loud crash above me. It sounded like someone had dropped a bowling ball. I bolted upright in bed and immediately felt strange. There was a weird energy all around me. I can't explain it. After about a minute I heard another crash. I briefly thought about grabbing my shoes and booking it, but that would mean passing under the hatch, and that seemed like a bad idea. So instead I just listened and waited, though I'm not sure for what. The crash happened again, and then again, probably 15 times in a row, followed by a long silence. Then I heard a smaller, creaky sound from the hallway. In my mind I registered it as a footstep, but it really could have been anything. I stayed still, but there were no more sounds after that. I lay back down, still tense and nervous, but I must have fallen asleep at some point because I woke up the next morning and everything seemed normal again. I got dressed and left to go get a bagel, same as every Saturday. At that point, bagels were the last thing on my mind. I went back upstairs and grabbed the pole. I set my camera on the coat wardrobe at the top of the stairs and hit record, just to make sure it would be caught on video, if a demon burst out of the hatch. I picked it up and realized what it was. It was a small leather shoe. But then he was like, "Oh, wait." I watched as he reached up into the emptiness with his free arm, and when he pulled it back he had something small and round in his hand. He climbed down the ladder and handed it to me. It was so worn that it hadn't registered as a marble at first. Its shape was also sort of weird, with a little bump on one end. Sorry for the long break. I haven't been feeling great the past couple weeks and haven't had time to update. There also wasn't much to say for the most part. I wasn't sleeping well, and I was having weird dreams, but they were vague and hard to describe. I'm sleepy all day long, and I've been getting sudden bouts of dizziness. The vast majority of them were me sleeping in an empty room. It's sort of dark but you can see me sleeping. I'd left a couple night lights on just in case anything showed up, but for the first 100 or so photos it was just me in an empty room. Then, suddenly, he was there, standing on the chair at the foot of the bed staring at me. In the next photo, from a minute later, he seems to be staring straight up at the ceiling, just staring. Then he appears to collapse on the chair. The next dozen photos are all the same. He's completely lifeless. At first I'd thought he was dead, which obviously doesn't make any sense. I looked over at the chair half expecting him to still be there, but it was empty. But then, in the next photo, he's gone. The room is totally empty again. He's gone in the next several photos, too. I figured maybe that was it, but I kept swiping through the photos. About 15 photos later, he was back, standing next to the bed. It was just like the last time I saw him. That's when my heart started to race. I didn't want to look at the rest of the photos, but I knew I had to. I swiped to the next photo and my heart sank into my stomach. He was on the bed, inches from me, staring down at me sleeping. The next one was worse. In the next photo, he's staring right at the camera. I'm at a loss for words. That malformed ear, that stringy hair. I didn't even know what to think. I looked all over my room but couldn't find anything. And honestly, I've been so exhausted I didn't know how to process it. Even now, all I wanna do is just go to sleep. I went home to Montana for the holidays, and almost immediately I started to feel better. Less tired, less foggy. Up until now, I haven't really entertained the thought of moving, thinking that David would probably just follow me wherever I go. But when I left for Montana, everything seemed to improve. Like maybe David wouldn't follow me after all. Maybe he was tied to the house, not me. Being home felt safer, and I managed to relax a little bit. I even started browsing listings for new apartments back in New York. The last thing I want to do is move in the middle of winter, but after the past few months it seemed like it might be worth it. It felt like there might be a way out. But after a few days, I started to feel strange again. One night I got up to go to the bathroom, and as I stood there in the dark, I couldn't help feeling like there was something moving outside the bathroom window. The bathroom looks out into the backyard and it was pitch black. I could barely see anything, but it's Montana and there are animals passing through all the time. Sure enough, in the morning I found animals' tracks through the snow. I don't know the specific animal, deer? Elk? The next night, the same thing happened. I got up in the middle of the night and thought I saw movement in the blackness outside. This time I stood at the window and gazed out, straining my eyes to see, waiting for them to adjust to the night. For a long time I stared out into the snowy darkness, but couldn't see any movement. Then, just as I was about to turn away, I saw something lurch off to the right and disappear from view. In the morning, as I was getting out of the shower, I glanced out the window and noticed tracks behind the garage. I couldn't tell what they were from the bathroom, so I got dressed, put on my coat and went outside. When I got up close, my heart practically stopped. They weren't tracks, they were footprints. Really small footprints. I followed them across the backyard, but they disappeared into the ditch out back. I stood there in the snow, not knowing what to do. What could I do? Call the cops and tell them I found footprints in the snow? The last couple nights I was too scared to leave my room. If it had been David out there in the snow, it meant that he could follow me anywhere. No matter where I moved, he could find me. I felt helpless. I flew back to New York the day after Christmas. Back in my apartment, it seemed like I was at square one yet again. I've tried everything I can think of. I've saged my apartment, I've hired a medium, nothing has worked. And worse, I still feel him at night, watching me from different corners of my room. Always getting closer, and waking up right before something happens. For the past few nights, I've been using that app that takes photos every couple minutes, but nothing has shown up. For whatever reason it doesn't seem to work anymore, but I've left it running just in case. It's picked up absolutely nothing, save for one thing, from last night. Last night was particularly bad. I felt sick and had nightmares all night. I dreamed that David was hovering in the corner by the ceiling, far off the ground. He was mouthing something, but I couldn't hear any words. Then he was hovering above my bed, staring down at me, his mouth moving faster than it should be. I couldn't move, I could only look up at him. Suddenly he plummeted downward and I felt this huge pressure crash into my chest. I woke up gasping, the wind completely knocked out of me. I sat up and looked around frantically, heaving for air, but there was nothing. When I caught my breath I retrieved my phone from the dresser. The photo roll showed nothing of note, save for the last photo, taken just a moment before. I don't know what to do. I'm at a loss here. I just don't know. Everything is fine. Some of you already know this, but I thought I should make a short update on Twitter about it. A little over a month ago, I made the difficult decision to leave my full-time job after 4 years with the company. It wasn't an easy choice, but it just became too difficult to focus on everything, and I decided it was time to turn my attention toward personal projects. I'm nervous about what the future holds, but I feel good. I know big things are coming. Please, don't worry about me. I'm okay, and everything will be like it was before.
Please subscribe for more scary stories.